The loaf of bread your mother bought in 1975 and the loaf sitting on the shelf today have the same name, the same friendly wrapper, the same spot at the end of the aisle, right where she always reached for it. But somewhere in the last 50 years, a dozen ingredients she would never have recognized got added to that loaf, quietly, one reformulation at a time. Nobody announced it. There was no sign on the shelf. They just changed the food and kept the picture, because the picture is what you trust. Hello and welcome. I'm Caleb Brooks. For 30 years, I've watched what the factory does to a food God made perfect. I've read labels the way Scripture taught me to read slowly, with a notepad in my hand, asking one question over and over: who profits from the part I can't pronounce? And here is the part that ought to bother you. The company that took the food out of the bread didn't do it to hurt you. They did it because the real ingredient costs money, and the cheap one lasts on a shelf for a year. That's the whole story. Cheaper to make, longer to sit, easier to ship. You just happen to be the one who eats it. Stay with me now, because today I'm going to name 7 ingredients I want out of your house, what each one is, what the honest concern is, and the real food God made to put back in its place. Every replacement is in your grocery store this afternoon, and most of them cost less than what you're already buying. But first, one quick word. The way I begin every video, I'm not a doctor, and nothing I say here is medical advice. This is what Scripture and the research point to, nothing more. Share it with your own physician and let them guide your care, especially if you have a health condition or take any medicine. Don't ever change something a doctor has you on because of a video. Now, the principle that'll save you in every aisle, and it comes straight out of the book of Proverbs. Chapter 23, the first 3 verses, in the King James. When you sit to eat at the table of a ruler, the writer says, be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. Deceitful meat. 3,000 years ago, a wise man looked at the rich man's table, the fancy spread, the food dressed up to look like a gift, and he said, don't be fooled by it. It is not what it appears to be. Friend, the most deceitful table in the history of the world is the modern grocery aisle. It looks like food. It is dressed up like food, and a good deal of it is exactly what Proverbs warned you about: dainties, made to deceive. So here's the rule I want you to carry out of here. The longer the ingredient list, the further you've walked from the garden. Let me show you what I mean, one ingredient at a time. Number 1, high-fructose corn syrup. This is corn that's been broken down in a factory and rearranged into a cheap, intensely sweet, liquid syrup. It showed up in the American food supply in a big way back in the 1970s and 80s. And here's the thing most folks miss: it isn't just in your soda. It's in the bread, the crackers, the salad dressing, the barbecue sauce, the yogurt that says light on the front. They put it in savory food you'd never call sweet, because it's cheaper than sugar and it makes you reach for one more bite. The honest concern is this: studies have linked diets heavy in this stuff to weight gain and to trouble with how the body handles sugar over time. I'm not going to tell you one cookie is going to harm you. That's not true, and you'd be right not to believe me. What I'll tell you is that it's hiding in 40 things you eat in a day, and it adds up. The real food to put back? When something needs sweetening, God already gave you the sweeteners: a little raw honey, a date chopped into your oats, a ripe banana, real maple syrup, the kind of sweet that comes with fiber and comes from a plant, not from a tank. Read the label on your bread tonight. If corn syrup is in the first 5 ingredients of a loaf of bread, that loaf is candy that's pretending to be supper. And right there is the whole game, the contrast I want you to see. The modern aisle versus the garden. In the garden, sweet came wrapped in a fig, slowed down by fiber, given to you in a portion a tree could grow. In the aisle, sweet comes by the gallon, stripped of everything, poured into a loaf of bread. Man can do a great many things to a kernel of corn. Not one of them makes it better than the way it came off the stalk. Number 2, the damaged fats, and there are 2 cousins here, so stay with me. The first is partially hydrogenated oil. That's a liquid oil that's been chemically stiffened in a factory, so it acts like a solid and never goes bad. It's an industrial trans fat. And this is the rare one where I can speak plainly, because the science got so clear that regulators in this country finally moved it out of the food supply. So if you see partially hydrogenated anything on an old box in the back of the pantry, leave it on the shelf. The second cousin is the refined seed oils, the cheap, heavily processed oils squeezed out with chemicals and high heat, sold to your grandmother's generation as the heart-healthy choice. Now, here's an honesty beat, because I won't oversell you. This one the internet has gone absolutely wild on. You'll see people claiming a tablespoon of the wrong oil is poison. The studies do not say that. What the research raises concern about is a diet swimming in these refined oils, day after day, in everything fried and everything packaged. The dose matters. The replacement is the one God put on the table 3,000 years ago, and I'll save the deep dive for another day. Good fat that came from a fruit or an animal or a seed the old way. Real butter, the olive oil from the dark bottle, fat off a clean piece of fish. Food, not factory. Now hold on, because the next one is the one parents need to hear, and it surprised me when I first read it. Number 3, the artificial dyes. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6. These are colors made in a factory. They came out of the petroleum industry originally, and they do one job and one job only. They make cheap food look bright and fun, so a child reaches for it. There is no nutrition in a dye. There never was. It is paint for your food. And here is the piece that ought to wake you up. These same dyes are restricted or carry a warning label across much of Europe over there. A food with these colors has to warn parents it may affect children's attention and behavior. Same candy, same cereal. Different country, different rules. Studies have linked these dyes to hyperactivity in some children, which is exactly why the warning exists over there. Now, I'll be honest, not every child reacts, and the science is still arguing about how much and how strong. But ask yourself the simple question, why is it in there at all? It's in there to sell, not to feed. The real food? Color that comes from food. The deep red of a real strawberry, the orange of a real sweet potato, the green of a real spinach leaf. If your food needs a chemist to make it look like food, it isn't. Let me stop here, because this is the piece that changes the whole grocery list. And it's the heart of why I called this channel what I did. Your body is the temple He gave you. 1 Corinthians says it plain. Not a rental you can trash and walk away from. A temple. And once you start seeing the inside of your body as something holy, something God built and called good, you cannot walk down that aisle the same way again. You start reading. You start asking. You start putting the box back down. That one shift in how you see yourself is worth more than this whole list. Number 4, sodium nitrite. You'll find this one in the processed, cured meats, the deli slices, the hot dogs, the bacon at the bottom of the price range, the lunch meat in the plastic. It's added to preserve the meat, and to keep that pink color so it looks fresh long after it would have turned. The honest concern, and I want to say this carefully, studies have linked diets high in processed cured meats to higher risk of certain cancers of the gut. I am not telling you a single ham sandwich gives you cancer. It does not, and anyone who tells you that is selling fear. What the research points to is the pattern. Cured, processed meat, eaten heavy, day in and day out over years. The real food is the simplest swap on this whole list. Real meat. A piece of chicken you roasted. A slice off a turkey you cooked on Sunday. Beef from the butcher, not from the factory. God gave you the animal. The factory gave you the pink slice that never goes gray. Choose the one that came from a farm. Number 5. The artificial sweeteners aspartame, sucralose, the little colored packets, and the diet everything. Now I had this one backwards for years, so let me just confess that to you. For a long time I thought, well, if it's got no sugar and no calories, it has to be the better choice. Right? That's what they told us. And it turns out it's not that simple. The honest concern is that some research suggests these lab-made sweeteners may do funny things to the appetite and to the good bacteria in your gut, the very bugs God designed to keep your insides running right. The jury's still out on how much it matters. And I'll tell you straight, the evidence is mixed. But here's where I land. I'd rather have a small amount of the real thing my body knows what to do with than a chemist's imitation it's still trying to figure out. The replacement is the same as number 1, a touch of raw honey, real fruit, a date. And mostly, water. Plain water with a slice of lemon. Your body was built to run on it. Number 6. MSG. And its sneaky cousin on the label, natural flavors. MSG is a flavor enhancer, a powder added to make processed food taste richer and savory than it actually is. So the chips and the soup and the frozen dinner light up your tongue and you keep eating. Now, honesty beat, because I won't lie to you to make a point. The panic over MSG got way out ahead of the science. For most people, in normal amounts, the studies don't show the harm the rumors claimed. So I'm not going to ring an alarm bell. I can't back up. But here's the part I do care about, and it's that phrase right next to it, natural flavors. Somebody in a marketing office decided natural flavors sounded better than made in a lab. It is a catch-all. It can mean dozens of manufactured compounds the company doesn't have to spell out for you. And my rule is simple. If real food was in there, they'd be proud to name it. When they hide it behind a vague word that tells you something, the real food needs no enhancer. A tomato that ripened on the vine doesn't need its flavor improved. It just needs to be a real tomato. Now hold on, because the last one is the one that finally made me read every bread label in the store. Number 7. The dough conditioners and the whiteners, potassium bromate, azodicarbonamide, and titanium dioxide. These are the chemicals added to factory bread and baked goods to make the dough rise faster, stretch further, and look whiter and fluffier than real bread ever would. And here's the fact that stopped me cold. Potassium bromate and titanium dioxide are banned outright in Europe and in the United Kingdom. Banned, not allowed in the food. And yet they're still permitted right here in the United States. Same loaf. Legal here, illegal there. Studies in animals linked potassium bromate to cancer, which is precisely why other countries pulled it. Now, I'll be fair, a good deal of American bread has already dropped these on its own, and you may not find them in yours, but you won't know unless you read. The real food is the oldest food there is. Real bread, flour, water, salt, a little leaven, thyme. 4 or 5 ingredients, every one of them a word you know. If a loaf of bread has a dozen ingredients, and 3 of them sound like a chemistry exam. That, friend, is the deceitful meat Proverbs was talking about. Now let me tell you about Frances Whitfield, because she wrote in after watching, and her note is the whole reason I made this video the way I did. Frances is 68. She told me she'd been buying the same groceries for 40 years and had never once turned a single package over to read the back. Why would she? The fronts all said wholesome, natural, made with real this and that. So one afternoon she sat down at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and went through her whole pantry, one box at a time, reading the labels for the first time in her life. And she said she just got quieter and quieter. Corn syrup in the crackers, dyes in the snacks she kept for the grandkids. That natural flavors line on almost everything. She wrote, "Caleb, I felt like I'd been fed by strangers in my own kitchen for 40 years. And here's what got her, the thing she couldn't get over. She remembered some of those products from when she was a young wife. The crackers, the bread. They tasted different back then," she said, "and the label used to be short. So what happened? Nobody changed the box. Nobody told her. What happened is what happens to almost everything on that shelf. A slow trade, 1 year at a time. A cheaper oil swapped in to save a few cents. A preservative added to buy another 3 months on the shelf. A dye to keep the color bright under the store lights. Each little change too small to notice, each one approved in some office she'll never see, until the food her mother knew became a thing with a dozen strangers in it, wearing the same friendly wrapper. That's not a conspiracy, it's just arithmetic. Cheaper to make, longer to sit. And 40 years of arithmetic added up to a pantry she didn't recognize. But then she said the thing I really want you to hear. It was the simplest fix in the world. She didn't go on some impossible diet. She just started buying food with short labels. Real bread, real meat. Fruit that rots, because food that can't rot was never really alive. That's it. That's the whole thing. You don't need a degree to do what Frances did. You need to turn the box over. So let me give you the simple way through any grocery store, and it costs you nothing but a few extra seconds. 1. Shop the outside walls first. The produce, the real meat, the eggs. The garden lives on the edges of the store. The factory lives in the middle aisles. 2. Turn the package over and count. If the ingredient list is longer than the joints on your finger, put it back. 3. If you can't pronounce it and your grandmother wouldn't have recognized it, you probably don't want to eat it. That's not science. That's just sense. And here's the honesty I'll leave you with, because I never want to be one more voice on the internet selling you fear. Not one of these 7 ingredients in one meal is going to harm you. Your body is tougher and more forgiving than that. God built it well. This isn't about one bite. It's about what fills your cart week after week, year after year, for the rest of your life. And it works alongside your doctor, never instead of him. You bring these changes to the people caring for you, and you decide together. 1 Timothy 4:4 says, "Every creature of God is good." Everyone. The food itself was never the problem. The question, the only question, is what man did to it after God called it good. Next time, now that we've cleared the shelf, let's fill it. I'm going to give you 10 foods God named by name in the Bible: figs, honey, the rest, and what He designed each one of them to do in the body He gave you. It's the natural next step from today. You cleaned out the pantry? Next time we stock it, so take care of the temple He gave you. Eat the food He made in the portion He intended, with thanks. And remember, God wrote the first prescription, and He wrote it in a garden. I'm Caleb Brooks. Guard your temple, and I'll see you next time.